At this point in the big God story, things were going pretty good for God's people. They no longer lived in the wilderness anymore, but in a city all to themselves, one that kept them safe and one they were proud of. They also no longer had a king who did whatever the king wanted, regardless of what God said, but instead, the king that God knew they needed, a king who loved him. And David, the king, wanted to give something back to God, to say thank you for all that he had done for his people. He wanted to build God a new home. You see, ever since God led his people out of Egypt, God had used different ways to remind them that he was always with them. And one of those ways was by getting them to build a special tent. The Tent of Meeting. It was the place where the priests would teach people about God, but also to make sure that things were right between God and his people. Now that things were more stable for Israel, David wanted to build God a more stable home. One that wasn't made of fabric, but one that was made of stone. God was greatly pleased with this idea, but told David it would not be his job to do. It would be a job for his son, Solomon. And so, when Solomon grew and became king, the job of building God a new home became his. In time, the construction was complete, and God's temple in Jerusalem was everything that his people had hoped it would be, and more. God was very pleased with what they built, and had a great message for the people. He reminded them that as long as you trust me and continue to remember me, things will continue to go well for you. But if a day should come when you stop trusting me and don't remember me, on that day, things will go poorly. You won't have this wonderful home anymore, and even this incredible building that you've built will be crushed to the ground. God loved what his people had built for them, but he loved their hearts and cared about where their hearts were pointed much, much more, which is why God gave them a boundary. Remember me, and things will go well. Forget about me, and things will go poorly for you. God shows us the boundary.